Hey guys, it is Monday, April 13th. It's Monday, you can tell. I've got my tie on. I hope you guys had a wonderful Easter, and thanks for joining me back here this week. Let's take a look at our things for today. Each Monday we'll post new things to work on. So, there's always those changes for the IXL thing. So, I'll post those today, and you can take a look at those. For math, I'll talk about them in math, and then reading, Miss Sommerfeld will post in Class Dojo. Always message me if you want to review. I'd be happy to go over those things, right? I'm not just a good decorator by putting rabbits behind me. I can help you with your math too. So please let me know if you have any questions at all. I'd be happy to help you. There is free lunch and breakfast today, all week, even today, even though we usually wouldn't have school today. There is free lunch today and the rest of this week. You can message me if you have any questions. Dojo's great. Email, call me at my extension. All those are great. I hope you guys are staying home and staying safe. Let's take a look at things for today. You have math. Keep working on the Prodigy. Some of you guys are doing great. Some of you could do more. Keep working, looking at Prodigy as well as IXL. On the next slide here in a second, I'll cover which standards in IXL I want you to work on, but I'll also have that posted in Classroom. Kahoot. I'm going to post new math Kahoot for you as well today, so take a look at that. Reading. Make sure you guys are reading every day. AR. Keep going with those minutes. If you are out of AR books, look at Epic and try to read a tester, but keep doing that. IXL as well. Again, Miss Sommerfeld will post that, and she'll let you know which ones to focus on for IXL. Social studies, there's still that Lieutenant Governor video up, and I will post a brand new Kahoot up there for this week, so take a look at that Kahoot as well. Phi take a look at that. You also have music coming up. I should have wrote that on here. So take a look at that message from Mr. Warner regarding music, because there is a chance to do recorders. So take a look at that. Here is what we want you to focus on for math in IXL. So looking at letter A, we want you to do number 6 and 19. So that's place value and rounding up to the hundred thousands place. So it's just one of the rounding ones. There's also a division one, which is just your facts up to 10. A lot of you guys will probably do really well with that one. Shouldn't be too bad. Some mixed operations, so you'll have to add, subtract, multiply, and divide different things, as well as symmetry. You have to count lines of symmetry. Some of us struggle with that. We think it's really easy, but you have to really pay attention to all of the lines. So that one is on there as well. I threw in a quick video because I forgot to last week. So here is a video from us doing Snakes Canyon. Only 14 seconds now, but remind you guys. Good feeling a nice grab back there. So, thought I'd show you guys that one. City of Ember is the story that we're reading. The City of Ember. And so we got Lena and Dune, and we're learning more about this crazy, weird city that's running out of supplies. Here's the map again. Kind of give you an idea. You can always come back to this, but here's Lena's house. Here's Dune's house. We'll talk about more of these things, but remember, she was down in the near the trash heaps by the greenhouses is where Lena just was. She's down by these greenhouses, and people are right next to the trash heaps. People are going to the unknown regions, so they're trying to get to the unknown regions. So this is where we were, and we'll continue on from there. We are on chapter 5 on Night Street. So here we go. Granny's mind was getting more and more muddled. Lena would come home in the evenings and find her riffling through the kitchen cupboards, surrounded by cans and jars with their lids off, or tearing the covers off her bed and trying to lift up the mattress with her skinny arms. "It was an important thing," she would say, "the thing that was lost. But if you know But if you don't know what it was, said Lena, how do you know when you have found it? Granny didn't try to answer the question. She just flapped her hands at Lena and said, "Never mind. Never mind. Never mind." She kept on searching. These days, Mrs. Murdo spent a great deal of time sitting by their window rather than her own. She would tell Granny she was just coming to keep her company. "I don't want her to keep me company," Granny complained to Lena. But Lena said, "Maybe she's lonely, Granny. Let her come." Lena rather liked having Miss Murdo around. It was a bit like having a mother there. She wasn't anything like Lena's own mother, who had been a dreamy, absent-minded sort of person. Murdo was mother-like in a quite different way. She made sure that they all ate a good breakfast in the morning, usually potatoes with a mushroom gravy and beet tea. She lined up the vitamin pills by each person's plate and made sure that they were swallowed. When Miss Murdo was there, shoes got picked up and put away, spills were wiped up off the furniture, and Papi always had on clean clothes. Lena could relax when Miss Murdo was around. She knew things were taken care of. Every week, Lena, like all workers between the ages of 12 and 15, had Thursday off. One Thursday, she was standing in line at the Garden Square Market, hoping to get a bag of turnips for stew that night. She overheard a startling conversation between two people standing behind her. "What I wanted," said one person, "was some paint for my front door. It hasn't been painted in years. It's gray and peeling horrible. I heard the store over the Night Street had some. I was hoping for blue." "Blue would be nice," said one of the voices wistfully. "But when I got there," the first voice continued, "the man said that he had no paint. Never had. Disagreeable man. All he had were a few colored pencils." Colored pencils? Lena had not seen colored pencils in any store for ages. Once she had 2 red ones, a blue one and a brown one. She used these for her drawings until they were stubs too small to hold. Now she only had 1 plain pencil left, and she was rapidly growing shorter. She longed to have colored pencils for her pictures of the imaginary city. She had a feeling that it was a colorful place, though she didn't know what its colors might be. There were many things, of course, on which her money would be better spent. Granny's only coat was full of holes and coming apart at the seams, but Granny rarely went out, Lena told herself. She was either at home or in a yarn shop. She didn't really need a new coat, did she? Besides, how much could a few pencils cost? She could probably get a coat for Granny and some pencils. So that afternoon, she set out for Night Street. She took Papi with her. Papi had learned how to ride piggyback. She wrapped her legs around Lena's waist and gripped on Lena's throat with her small, strong fingers. On Bundlow Street, people were starting in long lines with their bundles of laundry at the washing stations. The washing stirred in the clothes in a washing machines with long poles. In days past, the machines themselves had whirled the clothes around, but not one of them worked anymore. Lena turned up Hafter Street, where the 4 street lamps were still out, and a building crew was repairing a partly collapsed roof. Orley Gordon called out to her from high up on the ladder, and Lena looked up and waved. Farther on, she passed a woman with her bits of rope and string for sale, and a man pulling a cart full of carrots and beets and groceries to the grocery stores. At the corner, a cluster of little children played catch with a rag doll. The streets were alive with people today, moving fast. Lena threaded her way among them. But as she went on to Otterwell Street, she saw something that made her slow down. A man was standing on the steps of the gathering hall, shouting and hollering, and a crowd of people had gathered around him. Lena went closer, and when she saw who it was, her insides gave a lurch. It was Sadge Merrill. His arms flailed wildly, and his eyes were stretched open wide. In a high, rapid voice, he wailed the stream of words. "I have been to the unknown regions," he cried. "There is nothing there. Did you think something out there might save us? Ha! There is only darkness and monsters, darkness and terrible deep holes, darkness forever. The rats are the size of houses, and the rocks are sharp as knives. The darkness sucks your breath out. No hope for us out there. Oh no, no hope, no hope. He went on like this for a few minutes, and then he crumpled to the ground. The people watched him, looked at each other, and shook their heads. Gone mad, Lena heard someone say. Yes, completely, said someone else. Suddenly Sad sprang up and resumed his terrible shouting. The crowd stepped back. Some of them hurried away. A few of them approached Sad, speaking in calming voices. They took him by the arms and led him, still shouting, down the steps. Who dat? Who dat? Who dat? Who dat? Said Papi in her small, piercing voice. Lena turned away from her miserable spectacle. Hush, Papi, she said. It's a poor, sad man. He doesn't feel good, so we mustn't stare. She headed toward Night Street, which ran along the Green Gate Square. There was a stringy-haired man who sat cross-legged on the ground playing a flute made of a drain pipe, and 5 or 6 believers circled around him, clapping and singing. Soon, soon, coming soon, they sang. What's coming soon? Lena wondered, but she didn't stop to ask. 2 blocks beyond, she came to a store that had no sign on its window. This must be the one, she thought. At first it looked closed. Its window was dark, but the door opened when she pushed on it, and a bell attached to the doorknob clinked. From the back room came a black-haired man with big teeth and a long neck. Yes, he said. Lena recognized him. He was the one who'd given her the message for the mayor on this very first day of work. His name was Hooper. No, Looper? Was that it? That was it. Do you have pencils for sale? She asked. It seemed doubtful. The shop's shelves were empty except for a few sacks of used paper. Papi squirmed on Lena's back and whimpered a little. Sometimes, said Looper. Papi's whimper became a wail. All right, you can get down, Lena said to her. She set her on the floor where she tottered about unsteadily. What I'd like to see, said Lena, are your colored pencils, if you have any. We have a few, said Looper. They are somewhat expensive. He smiled, showing his pushy teeth. Can I see them? Said Lena. He went into the back room and returned a moment later carrying a small box, which he set down on the counter. He took the lid off. Lena bent forward to look. Inside the box were at least a dozen colored pencils. Red, green, blue, yellow, purple, orange. They had never been sharpened. Their ends were flat. They had erasers. Lena's heart gave a few fast beats. How much are they? She said. Probably too much for you, the man said. Probably not, said Lena. I have a job. Good, good, the man said, smiling again. No need to take offense. He picked up the yellow pencil and twirled it between his fingers. Each pencil, he said, $5. $5? For 7 you could buy a coat. It would be an old patched coat, but still warm. That's too much, Lena. He shrugged and began to put the lid on the box. But maybe, Lena thoughts raced. Let me look at them again. Once more the man lifted the lid and Lena bent over the pencils. She picked one up. It was painted a deep, clear blue, and on its flat top was of the blue dot of its lead. The pink eraser was held on by a shiny metal collar. So beautiful. I could buy just one, Lena thought. Then I could save a little more and buy a coat for Granny next month. Make up your mind, said the man. I have other customers who are interested if you aren't. All right, I'll take one. No, wait. It was like hunger, what she felt. It was the same as when when your hand sometimes seemed to reach out by itself and grab a piece of food. It was too strong to resist. I'll take 2, she said, and then a faint, dazing feel came over her and the thought of what she was doing. Which 2? The man said. There were more colors in that box of pencils than in all of Ember. Ember's colors were all so much the same. Gray buildings, gray street, black sky, even the colors of people's clothes were faded from the long use into mud green and rust red and gray blue. But these colors, They were as bright as the leaves and the flowers in the greenhouse. Lena's hand hovered over the pencils. The blue one, she said, and the yellow one. No, no, the... The man made his impatient noise in the back of his throat. The green one, said Lena. I'll take the blue and the green. She lifted them out of the box. She took the money from her pocket of her coat and handed it to the man, and she put the pencils in her pocket. They were hers now. She felt a little fierce, defiant joy. She turned to go, and there she saw that the baby was no longer in the store. Papi, she cried. She whirled around. Did you see where my little sister go out? She asked the man. Did you see which way she went? He shrugged. Didn't notice, he said. Lena darted into the street and looked both directions. She saw lots of people, some children, but no Papi. She stopped an old woman. Have you seen a little girl, a baby, just walking by herself? In a green jacket with a hood? The old woman just stared at her with dull eyes and shook her head. Papi, Lena called. Papi! Her voice rose to a shout. Such a little baby couldn't have gone far, she thought, but maybe towards the Green Gate Square, where there had been more people walking around. She began to run. And then the lights flickered, and flickered again, and went out. Darkness slammed up in front of her like a wall. She stood, caught herself, and stood still. She could see absolutely nothing. Shouts of alarm came from up and down the street, then silence. Lena stretched her arms out. Was she facing the street or a building? Terror swept through her. I must stand still, she thought. The lights will come on in a few seconds. They always do. But then she thought of Papi, alone in the blackness, and her legs went weak. I must find her. She took a step. When she didn't bump into anything, she took another step, and the fingers of her right hand crumpled against something hard. The wall of a building, she thought. Keeping her hand against it, she turned left and took another step forward. Then suddenly, she felt a hand touching the empty air. This would be Deadlock Street, or had she passed Deadlock Street already? She couldn't keep the picture of the streets clear in her mind. The darkness seemed to fill not just the city around her, but inside of her head as well. Heart pounding, she waited. Come back, lights, she pleaded. Please come back. She wanted to call out to Papi, to tell her to stand still, not to be afraid. She would come for her soon, but the darkness pressed against her and she couldn't summon her voice. She could hardly breathe. She wanted to claw at the darkness away from her eyes, as if there were someone's hands. Small sounds came here and there around her, a whimpering, a shuffling. In the distance, someone called out incoherently. How many minutes had gone by? The longest blackout ever had been 3 minutes and 14 seconds. Surely this was longer. She could have endured it if she hadn't been on her own. It was the thought of Papi, lost, that she couldn't stand, and lost because she had been paying more attention to the box of pencils. Oh, she'd been selfish and greedy, and now she was so sorry. She made herself take another step forward, and then the thought, what if I was going away from Papi? She began to tremble, and she felt the sinking and dissolving inside of her that meant that she was going to cry. Her legs gave way like a wet paper, and she slid down until she was sitting on the street. With her head on her knees, trembling, her mind a wordless whirl of dread, she waited. An endless time went by. A moan came from somewhere to the left. A door slammed closed. Footsteps started and stopped. Into Lena's mind floated the beginning of the worst question. What if? The lights never. She squeezed her arms around her knees and made the question stop. Lights come back, she said to herself. Lights come back, come back. And suddenly they did. Lena sprang up. There was a street again, and people looking upward and their mouths hanging open. All around, people started crying or wailing or grinning in relief. Then all at once, everyone started to hurry, moving fast towards the safety of their home, in case it should happen again. Lena ran towards Greengate Square, stopping everyone as she passed. Did you see a little girl walking by herself just before the lights went out? She asked. Green jacket with a hood. but no one wanted to listen to her. On the B Street side of the square stood a few people all talking at once and waving their arms. Lena ran up to them and asked her question. They stopped their talking and stared at her. How could we have seen anyone? The lights were out, said Nammy Proggs, a tiny old woman whose back was so bent that she could have had to twist her head sideways to look up. Lena said, No, she wandered away before the lights went out. She got away from me. She may have come this way, this direction. You have to keep your eye on a baby, Nammy Proggs scolded. Babies need watching, said one of the women who'd been singing with the believers. But someone else said, Oh, a toddler? Green jacket? And she walked over to open the shop door and called, You have that baby in there? And through the door someone came leading Papi by the hand. Lena dashed up to her and lifted her up. Papi broke into loud wails. You're all right now, said Lena, holding her tightly. Don't worry, sweetie. You were just lost a moment. Now you're all right. I've got you. Don't worry. When she looked up to thank the person who'd found her, she saw a face that she recognized. It was Dune. He looked the same as when she'd last seen him, except that his hair was shaggier and had on the same baggy brown jacket he always wore. She was marching up the street by herself, he said. No one knew who she belonged to, so I took her into my father's shop. She belongs to me, Lena said. She's my sister. I was so afraid when she was lost. I thought she might have fallen or hurt herself or be knocked over or... Anyway, thank you so much for rescuing her. Anyone would have, said Dune. He frowned and looked up at the pavement. Papi had calmed down and was curled up against Lena's chest with her thumb in her mouth. And your job, how is it? Lena asked. The pipe works. Dune shrugged his shoulders. All right, he said. Interesting, anyway. She waited, but it seemed that was all he was going to say. Well, thank you again, she said. She hoisted Papi around her neck, or around to her back. Lucky for you, Dune Harrow was around, said Nammy Proogs, who had been glaring at them in her sideways glare. He's a good-hearted boy. Anything breaks at my house, he fixes it. She hobbled after Lena, shaking her finger at her. You'd better watch that baby more carefully, she called. You shouldn't leave her alone, the flute player added. I know, said Lena. You're right. When she got home, she put the tired baby to bed in the bedroom they shared. Granny had been taking her afternoon nap in the front room and hadn't noticed the blackout at all. Lena told her that the lights had gone out for a few minutes, but didn't mention anything about Papi getting lost. Later, in her bedroom, with Papi asleep, she took the two colored pencils from her pocket. They were not quite as beautiful as they had been. When she held them, she remembered the most powerful wanting that she had felt in that dusty store, and the feelings of it was mixed up in fear and shame and darkness. Chapter 6 is the box in the closet. If you remember back to the very beginning, it all started with a box that got put into a closet. So we'll cycle back to that and see what that has to do with our story. I did throw a picture of some Coop fractions. Feel free to play that game if you want. You guys all have that on your iPad. And that is our reading for today. I hope you guys are enjoying this story. We'll pick up there tomorrow. I hope you guys all had a wonderful Easter. Hopefully the Easter bunny visited your house. Maybe not this one, but an Easter bunny. And I hope you guys all have a great time and a good week. I look forward to hearing from you. And let me know if you have any questions at all. I hope you guys had a great weekend. And I will talk to you guys later. Bye.